Hi everybody and welcome to this week's episode of Cranky Ranking. Yes, we have our new name and there it is, the first episode with the new name. So welcome everybody, and yeah, it's me Toz, and of course the other host we have from across the pond, it's Welcome to Fly. How are you, mate?
I'm doing good. How are you, Taz?
Yep, doing pretty good. Everything's going great this week. I've had quite a pleasant week, what with my free all expenses paid trip to Nintendo. Can't grumble. It's pretty
That's
cool.
nice.
Yep, can't grumble. So this week, guys, we're gonna do this week as the promised from Fly, the Ace Combat 6. Finally, we're gonna get a little bit of a review on that one. He's also got for us on the PS3 Ratchet and Clank, and I'm going to chip in this week with I think the game that everybody's talking about at the minute, Call of Duty 4. So without further ado, Fly, I think we'll have you start this week, and we'll kick off with Ratchet and Clank. So away you go, mate.
Sounds good. I've been working on this for a while, playing Ratchet and Clank, and I got to say right off, it's probably one of the best looking games you can find on the PS3 right now. I know Call of Duty just came out for the PS3 as well, but this is really a nice looking game. The graphics are unbelievable, the colors, just the way everything flows together. It's very well put together. Gameplay wise, it's a lot of fun. I mean, if you played any of the Ratchet and Clanks before, it's just like that platformer type experience, but it's really good and it's a lot of fun. They get some new tools this year that they didn't have previously, and part of it they saying is due to the power that the PS3 has. It's allowed them to do a little bit more fun. One of them's called Groovatron, and that was kind of fun. Made everybody dance.
Yeah, I've heard about the Groovatron. I was going to bring that up. It's apparently the biggest fun. Apparently every boss opponent and every character in the game has got its own little dance move, hasn't it?
Yep. Everybody dances different, and it's fun to watch. I mean, this is a game that's not only fun to play, but it's fun to watch, which is something that's not always easy to do. But my wife sat with me while I played this for a while, and she got a kick out of watching it. It's kind of almost gives a feeling like you're, because of the art style, it feels like you're playing a cartoon, which is a good time. There were a few things I didn't like about it. Go ahead, Taz.
Yeah, does it use the 6-axis at all?
It does. It does, and that was one of my complaints. I'm not a big fan of the 6-axis. If done right, I think it's okay. I think everybody knows like Lair is not a game that uses it well, but other games do better. This one, for the most part, it does okay. It has a few mini games. For example, if you wanted to pick a lock, it goes into a mini game where you use the 6-axis to roll kind of a marble around a circuit board and short out the lock and open the door that way. And that's okay because it's quick, you know.
Yeah, does it work well then with that?
That part does work well. Probably the most frustrating part is one of the weapons is a tornado launcher, and you send out this tornado, and the only problem is you have to steer it with the 6-axis controller. And it gets really hard, and it gets really frustrating, and you don't really...
So, would you say, all in all then, that the 6-axis is the PS3 has been pretty poor overall?
Overall, yeah. I don't think there's any game that I enjoy using it. In this game in particular, it does... how do I want to say it? It's the least offensive that I've dealt with so far. So it was not a bad implementation in Ratchet and Clank, but any other game I played, I did not like it, and I turn it off if it's an option.
Do you think then that in this Ratchet and Clank game that they've probably just stuck it in, you know, for the basic, you know, customary, let's stick the 6-axis in at least once kind of thing?
I'm starting to wonder if maybe Sony doesn't tell these developers that they want them to use it, that they want to see 6-axis control in there somewhere. At least with Ratchet and Clank, they kept it to a minimum, and they put it where it would kind of make sense. The tornado example that I gave, it makes sense that you could drive your tornado with the 6-axis. It just doesn't work very well. The mini games, though, do work okay. On a couple other levels, the Ratchet has got little wings on him, and you kind of can steer him as he flies a little bit, and that worked okay. But they were all short bits and pieces that worked well for that time.
But do
You
you,
take a game like Lair, and I just hate it. You take a game like Warhawk, where they put it in there, and luckily they gave you the option. But
yeah.
to fly, you're playing with it is for me anyway, and I'm sure somebody else is better at it. But for me, it is horrible, and it makes me not want to play the game.
But do you think in Ratchet and Clank then you would probably say that if they'd missed out six axis altogether, it wouldn't have been made any difference?
Yeah, I wouldn't have missed it. I
Yeah.
wouldn't have missed it if they left it out. I would have been just fine with that.
Do you think they're going to do it when they're obviously now they've won the lawsuit with the Rumble coming back in, which is the best edition? Do you think they ought to be better off scrapping the six axis altogether?
I do. I really think it was something that they tried to implement in lieu of having Rumble. You know, they lost
Yeah,
Rumble there in the beginning, and they wanted something else to replace it. And in theory, it sounds great. It obviously motion control worked for the Wii.
I think everybody really thinking about it thought that Sony pretty much copied the Wii, didn't they? Jumped on the bandwagon as such.
Yeah, you know, and I don't like to say that they copied them because I got to believe that this took years of development to figure out and put into place. So I believe them when they say that they had this idea as well. They just in no way implemented it as good as the Wii did.
No, right.
Yeah, but
No.
even the Wii can be said, you know, you play games on the Wii. I personally think that motion control or waggle or whatever you want to call it really only works well for certain games. Wii
Yeah,
Sports,
you're
obviously.
right.
Other games, it's almost a bigger pain than it's worth.
I can remember myself. I think you hit the nail on the head there as regards the Wii. When I think we played Raving Rabbits, there was some games in there that you played Raving Rabbits, and quite simply, to me, it just didn't seem you was in full control of it at all. So
Right.
I think you're right. I think it's a new technology, and that's where they're going. But
Yeah, as far
as
as the
for
PS3 goes,
yeah,
I mean, where this game, Rich and Clank, it does not feel tacked on like it does in some other games,
yeah,
which is good. But I do think when Rumble comes back, I really hope this motion control six axis just kind of fades away.
yeah, could be a good idea. Back to Ratchet and Clank then. What is it level based, or is it just a continuation story game?
There are different levels, different areas and stuff. And it plays nice that way because you can sit down and do a nice big chunk, and then you move into kind of a different area. But the story I thought was really good. The controls I thought were really good. My only other complaint was the camera. You control the camera with the right stick, and sometimes it gets a little out of hand and was real difficult to maneuver, which has kind of been a reoccurring theme in Ratchet and Clank games. The camera is always probably the biggest problem, but again, it wasn't something that I felt would necessarily, you know, ruin the experience. I
No,
mean,
I
in
think.
my opinion, this is one of the best games in the PS3 right now.
Don't you think that with all these kind of 3D kind of games of this genre, I think all of them suffer from cameras problems at some point or another?
Yeah, it's definitely, I guess, one of the harder things to get right.
Yeah. But you would say then this Ratchet and Clank is a real top game for the PS3.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I hate to use the term, you know, system seller, but it's definitely, like I said, it's one of the best looking games I've played on there. And part of that is the art style, but part of it too is there's a lot of shooters out. You know, a lot of stuff tends to look the same after a while when you're looking at, you know, browns and greens and stuff of Call of Duty and Resistance and
Yeah.
you know, even Halo to an extent, although they have their own art style as well. But this game just, I mean, immediately the colors that are on the screen, the action that's going on. I mean, it really feels like you're playing this character, and it's nice. I like it. I highly recommend it. I mean, I would be a definite buy for me anyway.
And what kind of difficulty levels has it got? Would it be for the younger player, or is there enough for everybody?
I think there is. I think there's enough for everybody. Like I said, my wife's not a big gamer. This is something that she liked the look of. She liked, you know, the characters are cute and they do fun things with the different weapons and stuff. So she really got into it. And like I said, she's not a real big gamer, so she was able to select an easier level and do fine with it. So I think it would be great for everything from kids all the way up.
Would you say how many probably hours gameplay would it be involved to
It's
finish it?
It's quite a bit. I mean, I'm starting to learn that I'm not near as good as some of these people you see online that say they finish games in, you know, 3 hours and 5 hours and whatever. But for me, I've been at it for probably somewhere around 12 to 15, and I've just now come to the end.
All right, sounds pretty good then. So,
Mhm.
all in all, then you would say a very definite buy for the PS3 finally.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, and it's not hard to do these days because there's not a lot, for the PS3 that is worth buying.
Yeah.
But this I would rank this right up there as far as like Resistance, Warhawk I did enjoy, and Ratchet and Clank. I mean, very good.
Right. That's great. That's brilliant then. That's finally a nice review for the PS3 there. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, moving on then to our second review, and I've chucked this in at the last minute as such because I've actually brilliantly big shout out to my nephew. Has very kindly lent me Call of Duty 4. It's the big game everybody's talking about. We couldn't probably do a show this week without at least involving it and mentioning it. So I thought we'll crack on with this one a little bit. And basically, what can we say about it? I've been playing it 2 days. I don't think actually in the past month I have given a single game so much time at once. I think I've sat for 2 sessions, probably 6-8 hours at a time, and it's purely the bottom line. I've got to say, the hype that is going around the internet at the minute. One thing to say, believe the hype. It's just the most stunning game I think I've seen since I've had my 360. One point I would like to make as well: everybody who's played the beta, get that out of your head, because to be quite honest, it blows the beta out of the water. The single player game is truly a remarkable step forward. I mean, what do you think, Fly?
It really, that beta, just talking about that really was just a small glimpse of what Call of Duty 4 has to offer, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, and the beta was good. It was really good, as
Yeah,
we all know. I mean,
excellent.
it blew me away. As people know from our regular show, I'm not a first-person shooter. I mean, I can take it or leave it. I have the odd online game with friends for a laugh, as we all know. But I've got to say, this game is truly stunning. The start of the game, won't give no spoilers away. The start of the game has got an introduction very similar to the Half-Life kind of scenario, where there's a real-time video rolling. As we know, they've finally moved on from the World of War II scenario and moved it into the present day. It's just truly. It starts off with a video where you're basically a character. It's an ongoing video. It's pretty disturbing actually. It gets you right into the feel of the game, and from the off, the first level, it quite takes you by surprise, because it literally grabs you by the scruff of the neck, chucks you onto something, into something, and you don't know, be honest, your arse from your elbow, and it just gets you straight in. And at the end of that very first level, I found myself absolutely out of breath, as if I'd run the thing myself. It looks stunning. It plays fantastic. It looks, as we've just said, a million times better than the beta looking. How far have you got into it, Fly? Do you,
I, I haven't played as much as you have. I'm still in the first act, so I've only probably done the first 4 or 5, maybe 6 missions. I'm not exactly sure, but I agree with you 100%. It's an amazing looking game, amazing playing game. There's not much bad I can say about it. But one thing I wanted to bring up, and this isn't really a spoiler for anybody, but the very first thing you do is go through training, and they kind of the typical, like they've done in previous Call of Duties, where it's go pick up this weapon, shoot the target, whatever.
yeah.
When you get to the end, when you
I
do that
know.
mock
I know what
stage, it's just amazing, and it works well. But what the coolest part that I thought about that is when you finish the little mock training simulator that they put you through, a thing comes up on the screen and it recommends a difficulty level. And
Yeah.
you, as you're moving, as you're playing, you can hit right there. Yeah, I want to make it normal. I want to make it easy. I want to make it whatever. And I thought that was really neat how they worked that in there. To be
That
able to play
that's
it
a
and then
yeah.
recommend something like that. It was,
That's a great point, because I actually I would recommend to anybody who's not played it yet, definitely play the training level. You might want to skip it, but obviously it probably is a bit of a spoiler, and I'll give it an alert. There is achievements at the end of the training level, so obviously I would recommend going through it. But it is an experience, and it's well worth checking out. And indeed, it does give you a recommended level to start the game. But a good point there, I will say to people, because I was so excited and wanted to play the game, and I had played a lot of the beta, it actually, because I had an absolutely appalling run on the test, because to me it was difficult, didn't know where I was going. I think I had 2 or 3 attempts, because you're actually given a small little obstacle course to follow on a time limit. You have to do it under a set time. For the first few times I couldn't do it, because like I say, I didn't know where I was going. As soon as I figured out where I was going, I did it really close to the time, so probably the poorest go you could have. But like I say, I did that, and I was so excited about getting going, I just knew that I was going to set the level to normal, because I'd played it, as I say, previously on the beta. But I would recommend to people, if you want a true gauge of what level you would want to play it, I would actually give that training level. When you know the route, you basically got to learn the route. Once you've learnt the route, I would highly recommend to people out there, go and do the route 2 or 3 times till you've got it off to a par, then have a proper go at it, and indeed have the level at the recommended set level, because it is a good touch, and you would actually probably, do better by doing that. But it is a very nice touch.
It was nice. They did the same thing for the controls. After you played just a little bit, they asked, do you want to invert? Invert your look up, look down, which is not a normal option you find in first-person shooters. But this was something that a little extra that they did. As far as, okay, you played for 10 seconds. Do you like the controls, or do you want to switch them?
Yeah, I mean, the presentation of the game as well. They're very nicely. I mean, so much so that I didn't even realise that it was happening, because it's just done so well. The loading screens are actually like the introduction to a satellite map to basically explain what your next mission is or what's happening with the story. The story's great. It flirts right across the world, involving the SAS, the Marine Corps, and it's just immerses you right into this story from the off. And within the first few levels, you are well and truly deep into it. And I just found myself did not want to switch it off, and I was just playing level after level. And there is one level that I've got to mention before we close it off, that's the talk of the internet, the gunship level. I've had an argument with a friend or two about this. I mean, I've been gaming for many, many years, 20 plus years, and I can safely say that gunship level is probably the best looking level of any computer game I think I've ever seen. The way it's done, you are sat in a gunship helicopter, won't give it away, but you're in a gunship helicopter. The way it's presented, the way the level runs, sadly finishes that level finishes far, far too quickly for me, and I think everybody I've spoken to has agreed with the same. It's you have to see it to believe it. When you're in amazing. The level, it's just truly the most stunning thing I honestly believe you'll see this year. You might be sat there thinking, well, wow, it can't be that good. But believe you me, I will guarantee you now, you will hit the gunship level and you will be just blown away. It's just awesome. It just ties into the entire game. I mean, there was arguments about who's going to win Game of the Year. I mean, what do you think, Fly?
I definitely think it's a contender for Game of the Year, for sure.
To be honest, I can't see anything touching it.
Probably the best thing I like about it is the way it was just so immersive. I mean, you really, the second you were in it, like you said, I did not want to quit playing. I wanted to keep going, and just amazing the way they've done with that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's just me, but like I say, I don't pretend to be a first-person shooter, and I would put myself, not even above average, probably a mediocre player. But bar 2 or 3 little sticky points, and I'm actually at one now that I'm hoping to play when we finish recording this show. There are some sticky points where it is difficult, and I mean, we don't want it a walk in the park, and it is difficult, but it just adds to the realism. But even so, as like an average game player, I don't know if you felt the same, Fly. I felt that it was really nice controls, didn't struggle, I wasn't getting killed many times, I was just purely immersed in the game.
It was good. It was hard enough, but not too hard. And I played it normal. I was going to say,
I was on the normal level. There are higher levels, pretty similar to Halo, where I think we've also found out that you get all the achievements again for the big high levels. There's no co-op mode, sadly, though, is there?
Yeah, that's something that I really wish they would have put in there.
Yeah,
co-op
I mean,
would have been the icing on the cake, in my opinion.
It would have been. I mean, I've been actually thinking that today when I was speaking to you. It'd been good if we could have popped into co-op, but I think it probably came a little bit too late. But I think we'll move on to now with the game, where I think they've put most of the work into the multiplayer.
Yeah.
As everybody knows, playing beta, we had a few maps, 3 maps on beta that we all fell in love with. It was a brilliant game, but the multiplayer scenario that they've put into this title is, well, 16 maps, an immense amount of different types of game, and as we all know, I haven't seen a first-person shooter yet with the way it involves kind of a single-player leveling scenario in a multiplayer. I mean, for the first time ever, I feel that they've catered to everybody. The perks, the leveling, where you're actually looking forward to leveling. And what I do like, I mean, I actually had a bit of a comeback in this in beta, and I thought, I hope it handles well in the final version. I mean, it's too early to tell yet, but I was worried that you do indeed get leveling points, irrespective of whether you finish bottom of the table, whether you finish top of the table in your multiplayer games. When you first start, you're only allowed one scenario, free for all. You start at level 1. You don't start getting the perks or being able to customise your player until level 4, but I've only had 3 games and I'm on level 3 already, so you'll be there pretty quickly, even if you finish, like I say, low. One thing I will mention, and I'm hoping me and Fly's mentioned it today, and I think you know where I'm going, Fly. The matchmaking system. Please, Infinity Ward, hope this is not going to be the killer. I have, as I said, played 3 games today, joined in 8-match free-for-all. 6 of the 8 players in the first game was level 22 plus. I was level 1. In my second game, again, I was level 2, and I was getting players level 16 and above. To me, that's a little bit silly. Beginners don't want to be put off. Don't you agree?
Yeah, to be fair though, I mean, I can honestly say I don't know how the system exactly works, whether it's based strictly on your levels or if it's based on your skills, because you also said you did very well in those matches.
I did. I mean, I finished in the match where the level 20 pluses. I finished 3rd in one match and I finished 4th in the other. Now, I also mentioned to you earlier this evening that I have found, because I played the single player first, I actually found that jumping onto the multiplayer after, playing that intense on single player, I can actually notice it immensely that my multiplayer skills have gotten way better than they was when I played beta. Way better. I mean, as you probably know, I think you joined in a few games with me in the past. I'm not that good. I finished bottom probably 9 times out of 10. But I'm finding myself, and bearing in mind that when you start on level 1, you have got the bog standard weapon, you've got no sights, you've got none of the fancy Dan perks or anything. And like I say, I was getting like 8, 10, 12 kills in a 5-minute match, which is pretty average. I mean, the top guy was only getting, I think, 18, 19. But yeah, I find myself very comfortable with the bog standard weapons, and it must go, like we've mentioned, the way the game plays. You feel so comfortable with it.
Yeah.
One thing I will mention, you've probably not got to level, so I probably won't mention it. There are a few, don't know if you know yet, again, spoilers. If anybody does not want spoiling, fast forward 5 minutes. I'm just going to mention a little thing. The game goes along where it deters away from the bog standard first person, where one, you have to rescue a helicopter pilot, and the other one was you actually have to carry one of your colleagues for quite a fair way. I was just mentioning it purely to say that was a nice little sidestep from just the bog standard single player, scenario. I know some games like that try and take you on a real tangent way off the mark, like some kind of levels that they try and just fill it in to make it stretch. I mean, one thing I will mention, I mean, you could obviously back me up here or agree with me, the level design, the actual, I think again it's done quite well. Do you think they're long enough? Do you think the
Oh yeah, I think they're perfect because they're not too long that you can't, you
no.
get sick of it or you want to quit. When they're long enough to make you want to just try one more. I also found out I mean, you can save within the level, save at the different checkpoints,
Yeah,
and the
that's
checkpoints
great.
seem very well spaced, so it's not like you have to finish that level before you can stop.
No, I think you can save it anywhere, can't you? I think can't you just press start and save and quit at any point in the level?
Yeah, I think it does move you back to the last checkpoint,
Ah,
but it's
right,
not
right.
it's not far from where you were, whatever it is, because
No.
I've stopped, in the middle of levels a bunch now and had no problem. I didn't feel like I had to repeat a lot of stuff,
Yeah.
which was nice.
I mean, one thing I will mention that I think we spoke it in our show on Saturday that a couple of the major podcast sites, GameSpot, IGN, GameSpot especially, mentioned pretty early on in the review, put it on a bit of a downer with me included, mentioned that the game was finishable in 5 hours.
Mm,
Well, I can tell you now that is absolute BS. There is no way an average, normal, first-person player of this game will get anywhere near finishing this game in 5 hours. Not even close. So either GameSpot have got some real top first-person shooter personnel on their books, or they played it on easy, or I don't know what. But there is no way, Fly. I don't know what you think that they've finished that game
yeah,
in 5 hours.
I agree with you. I mean, I don't know how many exact hours I put in so far, but I bet you it's close to 4 at minimum,
I,
if not more, and I'm not even through the first little part.
I'm on Act 3. I don't even know how many acts there are actually. I've not checked. So I like it.
3.
There are three, so I am actually on the last act. So I must be. I thought I was pretty close, but I'm on Act 3, and I can tell you now that there is definitely, probably, I've not checked, but I can tell you now I'm over 10 hours, maybe 12,
Yeah,
and that is not, you know, me being rubbish at it or being long-winded or the levels being long-winded. That is playing it at a normal, everyday pace, and
yeah,
like I say, 5 hours. Poor dear, that is some serious. Not the point that it would have bothered me because I actually said to myself after starting it, I was halfway through the game and I said to myself, thinking about this 5 hour scenario, if the game finished in the next level, I would have been perfectly happy because it was
yeah,
just
yeah,
such fantastic, intense action.
yeah.
But
Quality, not
yeah,
necessarily length of
exactly.
the game.
And what I'd like to say, the way GameSpot said that announcement, it's pretty poor. They marked it down because it's 5 hours long. That is a poor thing to say, really. To say that I'm willing to bet if you had a poll on some forums or wherever, the average person playing this game would not be anywhere near 5 hours. They'd be double that. But anyway, I mean, have you got anything final to say about it, Fly?
Yeah, just as far as the game length, like I said, I agree with you. It's not a 5-hour game, and it's more about the quality of the experience than it is necessarily the length. But a lot of people said like Heavenly Sword was very short, but it was a very good game.
Yeah.
So, game
I mean,
length isn't always the same.
I mean, I've been, I've argued this on the show. I think I mentioned it about Halo. Halo was very short in comparison. I think a lot of people agreed that it was short. Like you say, Heavenly Sword. But I mean, when all said and done, I mean, if we're being perfectly truthful, like you've just said, Fly, as long as the game's enjoyable and you're happy with what you've got, then fair enough. I've I've always been of the argument, and the figures back me up here, that such as Call of Duty 4 and your Halo, they live and die by the multiplayer. Now, what a lot of people don't realise, that only approximately 35 to 40% actually play online. So you
Okay.
must give them people that are paying the same money a very good single player. And I'm a firm believer. Either you have got to cater the single player first and foremost. Multiplayer has got to be a second thing, in my opinion.
See, that's
Because
interesting.
yeah,
I listened to an interview with a developer, and they said they actually developed the multiplayer uh, separate and before they did the game because they wanted it almost to be treated as its own game.
well
And
that
I definitely think they succeeded because the amount of options, the amount
yeah,
of
but
stuff in there, it's a full game on its own.
well, that's a good point. That's a great point. And I was about to say to you then, as regarding that. Surely then we must be coming to a point in time where these games are getting bigger, getting better, especially on the multiplayer front. We look at the last two, Halo and Call of Duty 4, as being immense multiplayer games. Are we going to get to the point soon then, do you think, where they've got to release two different versions?
Go the Shadowrun route?
Well, Shadowrun was, and I still stand by this now, and it's a shame. I played a demo of Shadowrun, and I will hold my hands in the air and said that was a bloody damn good game. It was original, it was nicely done. I had not got a bad word to say about it. Where that game died is simply not having a single player scenario.
Which is kind of weird because then you get into other options. I agree with you. I thought it was a great game. I really enjoyed the game. For the $60 price tag, that's where I didn't like it. For $60, it should have a single player, a multiplayer. I mean, Halo, I paid $60 for my regular copy of Halo, and it's got everything. I paid $6 for Call of Duty.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it helped either that there was a different price on the Windows version and the Xbox version. That was diabolical.
I think that was the execution is what was wrong with Shadowrun. But I see what you're saying. As these multiplayers get bigger and more robust and become games of their own.
Would you object to that? Personally, no, I don't think I would. I think it'd be a good idea. Obviously, providing the price is right.
Well, that's where it's gonna. The problem's they're gonna want to sell each of them to you for $60.
Well,
if they're gonna sell each for $30, then you might as well put them both on the same disc.
But like I say, it's a good question actually. It's probably a good topic for the main show one week. Where, would we ever get to that point? Because I think both games, such as Halo and especially Call of Duty, looking at Call of Duty, that I think you could have sold two separate games quite easily.
Maybe. I'm glad they didn't.
No, yeah, I mean, I'm glad. I mean, but this is my point. With only 40% of people that actually do, with the figures suggest, play online, do we think that the time may be coming where they may have to start thinking, well, let's sell two different versions and see how we go? Probably won't happen. Like you say, they like to chuck it all in one bag. But then we go to the point, providing they provide an equal amount of entertainment for both people.
Yeah. See, that's the way I like it now. I mean, if you did not play on live, if you never played the multiplayer, I still think this game's worth $60 for the single player experience alone.
Yeah.
I think the multiplayer on its own is worth a fair chunk of change. Together, I definitely it's a must buy. I mean, it's a great game.
On that question, then, I too agree with you. The single, if I never played online and got Call of Duty now, and I finished it tonight, which I may well do, I would be perfectly happy. Even though I've only played it for 3 days, I would be completely happy with the purchase. Stunning game, great graphics, great game, great everything.
The longevity of it is going to be the multiplayer because I can clearly see that this is going to be one of them games that you play for months and months, if not years. I mean, it's, in my opinion, the Call of Duty 4 multiplayer and the Halo 3 multiplayer are two games that I'm definitely going to be playing for a long time to come.
My question to you then, I'm actually opposite. I have not touched Halo 3 multiplayer probably in 3 weeks, and to be honest, I've got the game in my cupboard, and I've no desire to go back to it at all, not at all. And my point is this: just going back to that, it is. I know it is. But I've said this evening to you in the chat before the show. I think Call of Duty 4 makes Halo 3 look absolutely. I do honestly, and people are going to hate me for this. I think it makes it look like an amateur show. On the single player, I will stress, I mean single player game. Single player entertainment, the presentation, the entertainment, the excitement, the game itself makes Halo 3 like a kindergarten show to me.
I think the hard part is that they both do a very good job in what they were trying to do, and maybe you just might have a preference towards the more realistic war, real soldier, real weapons than the plasma guns and stuff like that.
Good point.
One interesting thing that just kind of came to me now is part of the reason I think both these games are so good. I mean, the single players are both just outstanding, but multiplayer especially, that sets them above the rest. And kind of I'm thinking back to maybe like Rainbow Six, which was probably my next favorite online multiplayer game
Yeah.
is both Halo, both Call of Duty have so many options and so much stuff that's customizable. And
Yeah.
I mean, Halo, especially with the maps you can make with the Forge, and the game types, and then Call of Duty has just got a million options. You can't even list them all. To create the type of game that you want to play, in my opinion, just gives it such legs
Yeah.
versus something like Rainbow Six, which was great, and I loved Rainbow Six, but you were limited to this is what you're going to do. Here's the weapons you're going to pick, and this is the mission you're going to do.
I mean,
So
yeah. I mean, to finish off with, I think you've got a good point there. What we can safely say that yeah, Call of Duty is awesome. But I think we can finish by saying what a good thing it does do. It makes the future for any other gaming company that's thinking of bringing one of these types of games out. Where
yeah,
Halo gave us the theatre mode, I'd have loved to see that in Call of Duty.
yeah,
Uh, but what it certainly has done, Halo 3 and Call of Duty this time, has certainly raised the bar for the other companies that they cannot release substandard games now like this because they will be buried.
yeah, absolutely.
But
People
yeah,
won't play.
yeah. I mean,
Um,
it's a good thing, if
One
anything.
thing I wanted to mention, but before I forget, as far as you notice there was an arcade mode in Call of Duty 4 that
No.
you cannot play. There's an arcade mode that you cannot play until you finish the single player campaign. You have to unlock the arcade mode,
Oh
which I
right.
thought was an interesting twist that they did with that.
Play it
I
slowly.
guess basically you get to choose the missions and stuff, but honestly, since I couldn't play it, I didn't
Well,
learn all that much about it. But
I
I learned you
I
had to
will.
unlock it.
I'll probably be able to tell you before you can tell me then. So
Yeah,
I'll probably let you know. So anyway, then, guys, moving on. We're just all in all finished with Call of Duty. Believe the hype, guys.
yeah,
It's just probably the best game this year in my opinion. Will win Game of the Year. I can't see
yeah,
anything else beating it. I did
definitely.
say,
Yeah,
yeah, I did say BioShock would be the Game of the Year, and it may well be a close thing. Two different games, two different kinds of genre in my opinion, but Call of Duty 4 is simply a must purchase. One game this year has to be this game. So anyway,
yeah.
guys, moving on finally to our last story, our last review from Fly. Finally, that we've been saying for a few weeks, he can move on to his Ace Combat 6, mate. Go on.
Yep, my Ace Combat 6. I have to preface it by saying that I believe it's a law that I buy almost every flying game that comes out.
And
I do like,
I wonder why that would be.
yeah, yeah, I like flying. I especially like flying these type of games, fighting games where you're shooting planes down and stuff. As far as Ace Combat 6, if you played any of the other ones, you know exactly what the story is. You fly the planes, you fly the missions, you shoot down other planes, you shoot down, you have ground targets, you have different types of missions like that, and it does well. I don't think the beta, or I'm sorry, not the beta, the demo looked as good as this game does in the final version here. To me, it just looks better. The graphics are amazing, especially with the planes in flight, the clouds, which is not something that's always easy to get done in a video game. I think they all look great. If there was a downside, maybe some of uh, the ground graphics are not as good. The cities are a little small, the buildings are small, but then again, you're in a jet going 600 knots, um, so it looks great. It plays very well. The single player campaign is good fun. There's a few problems that I didn't care for. One is the missions are very long. It takes a long time to get through the missions. You can't save anywhere in there. You have to start the mission, you have to finish it, which is extremely annoying in any game. It also got a little repetitive. You basically had to, do the same things over and over and over again. But
So do the length of the levels then? Is it one of these kind of things where really, if you get shot down near the end of the level, you've got to go right back to the beginning?
yeah, yeah, and
That's
I don't
that's a
like that.
shame. No, it's a shame.
Especially because on each level, I mean, it's kind of hokey in the fact that you're kind of a one-man machine yourself. You have other planes up there with you. You have teammates helping you out, but I would guess that me myself flying, I had to shoot maybe 50% of the targets, if not more. So you as the player are doing the bulk of the work, which is okay because that's fun. But again, it gets repetitive. It gets kind of old. Um, Another thing I didn't care for was there wasn't a lot of direction as far as what you were supposed to be doing next. A lot of it happens with the radio chatter between, your kind of your command and your other planes. Someone might be calling for help and saying, hey, get over here and help us out. If you miss that, you can fail the mission because you were off blowing up other targets, and there's targets everywhere.
I think everybody's played the demo. I mean, for people out there, listeners out there that don't know, this actually was the most downloaded demo on the 360 this year.
I didn't know that. It was?
Yeah, a real giant sleeper. It came from nowhere, and it went right to the top of the download charts. I think it was only beaten by BioShock's demo when that came out, but it was over 1 million downloads in one weekend, I think I read.
I think what it's got going for it is it's different. There's a lot of first-person shooters. There's a lot of drivers, and
it's obviously graphically fantastic. I think that's what's the first thing that catches my eye. I mean, sadly, I didn't even know there was any previous Ace Combats. I mean, the Ace Combat 6 to me may as well have been Ace Combat 1, but it certainly caught my eye, and I liked it. It was one I wanted to pick up. One thing I haven't mentioned yet, the controller, the special controller. Yeah. Did you pick it up?
I am a self-proclaimed peripheral whore, and I buy almost every peripheral controller you can imagine. I have 4 Wiimotes, I have 4 Xbox controllers, I have 4 PS3 controllers, I have a wheel, I have a guitar, I have everything you imagine. But I could not bring myself to buy that flight stick.
No.
And it strictly came down to money. I mean, the game itself was a full-price game, $60. To buy the flight stick, it went up to $150. So it was $90 just for that flight stick. And unlike something like the wheel, I can use the wheel across several games. That flight stick is only going to work in one game.
That's pretty expensive. I mean, that's bordering on the same price for the entire Rock Band.
Yeah, exactly. It's $20 less than what all of Rock Band costs, and it's wired. So is Rock Band.
Have I heard right as well that you guys over there, that it's pretty bad where you only can buy the controller with the game? You can't buy it as a separate peripheral?
All I've seen so far is it being sold as a bundle with the game. That might change at some point, but all I've seen so far was you had to buy it with the game.
One question to you then, would you pick it up if it indeed went down in price?
If it went down in price, I mean, if it was $100, I probably would have got it. To get the game and the controller for $100, I would have got it. I've heard, again, I haven't touched it myself, but I've heard that it's a solid controller, that it works well. So I don't want to say that, make it sound like I'm bashing on the controller. I'm just bashing on the price. I didn't, and like I said, I buy everything, and I could not bring myself to buy that.
Right. Just back to the game then. Has it got multiplayer at all?
It does. It's got multiplayer. I didn't care for it, to be honest with you. It seemed confusing. You were in there, it was kind of mostly a big dogfight. You could do teams, you could do individual. It had some options, but I didn't. It just seemed confusing. You were in there, you couldn't really tell what was going on, and you were constantly getting shot at or shot down. Granted, I wasn't very good at it when I tried it, so maybe it's different if you get a little better. But overall, I didn't think the multiplayer was that great.
Right. So really then, visuals aside, this is a pretty disappointing title then overall.
Yeah, I would give it, average at best. I definitely wouldn't tell somebody to buy it, which is sad because I really like Ace Combat and I really like the Ace Combat series. I think it's for sure worth renting. There's a lot of, it's a great rent, but I'm just not sure it's got the fun in it to actually buy it. And once I finish the single player, I don't see myself going back to it.
Do you think then basically this game's really gone on the hype of its visuals?
Yeah, probably the visuals and the fact that it's different. It's not your standard run around with a gun and shoot people. You're flying a plane, which which is always exciting, and the physics of that are great. I mean, they're spot on as far as I can tell. It's real fun to fly the plane and shoot guys down and everything. It got a little long-winded, and I didn't even mention the story, but the story itself.
I was going to say, actually, obviously seeing all the demos and the films, my next question to you, what does that play like? Because it actually looks like a bit of an RPG kind of, scenario. What's it like?
It's ridiculous. They're all cutscenes. That's all they are, cutscenes.
Right.
So you fly your mission, which has nothing to do. The basics of the story is that your city, where you live with your wife and child, get attacked by this neighboring country, and you get split up from them, and you have to go fly your plane and fly the missions. The wife and the daughter get split up from each other. They're trying to find each other. So in between the missions, you watch a video of basically like your wife traveling to find the daughter, and she talks, and it's ridiculous. I mean, it's by far the lowest point of the game for me.
So there's no actual gameplay in these scenes then at
No,
all?
no, you just watch, and it's dumb is a strong word, but it's pretty dumb.
And it's not covering loading times or anything like that, and it's basically chucked in
No.
part of the game just as video.
Yep, you can skip them and you wouldn't miss a thing. It's ridiculous, and the acting, the voice acting's horrible.
Talking of that, then, can you actually skip them by pressing a button?
Yeah, you can hit a button and get past them, which
thing,
is a good thing, but
yeah.
they're horrible.
Right then, so
I will say though, it does have co-op,
oh,
which is nice. You can do up to 4-person co-op, which I really like.
And have you tried it? Is it good?
I did, and that's more mission-based, kind of like the old Rainbow Six was, where you don't play the co-op story like you do in, say, Halo, but you play specific missions co-op, and you can do up to 4 people with that, which I liked. Which is a little better than multiplayer, because you had a mission, you had a goal, you weren't just flying around circles trying to shoot each other.
All right. So, all in all, then, for the review of Ace Combat 6, pretty average.
Yeah, pretty average. I mean, it's not. It's worth playing for sure. With just so many good games out right now, if you only had the money to buy 1 or 2 or something like that, I wouldn't tell you to buy this one. I would buy something else and rent this one, GameFly, something like that.
Yeah, which is a shame, because like we say, it looked pretty popular on the downloads, and I must admit, from my point of view, this was one I was looking forward to myself. So
this would have been perfect had it come out in the middle of summer when nobody had nothing to do.
Which is an issue that I think we must all agree with, that these companies have got to change. Don't let us sit about in the summer with no games and then release 50 at the winter. It's ridiculous.
Yep.
This
People buy games year round. Somebody make a note.
I know. I don't. And it's crazy as well, because the people that make these games are obviously gamers themselves at one point in time. Now they themselves must realise, It amazes me that somebody don't jump up and say, "Well, let's chuck one out in the summer," because nobody else is.
Yeah, especially some of these RPGs.
Crazy.
I mean, Mass Effect's going to be a big game no matter what. But if Mass Effect came out in the beginning of the summer, you'd have all summer playing that.
And to be honest, I actually think that because they've got this crazy belief that nobody wants to buy games in the summer, if one of these companies chuck one of the real big titles out at the beginning of summer, I think it'd put 5-10% onto the top of the sales.
I bet it would. I mean, and I don't know if they're figuring people are gonna, because I mean, this time of year, I don't think very few people have the money to buy every good game that's coming out, because there's a lot of good games, and they certainly don't have the time to play them all.
No, like we've said, I mean, the only thing I've not got the funds by a long way. If I'm lucky, 1 game this Christmas, maybe 2. And where we all know, on the 360 alone that I've got, there's probably 6, 7, 8 titles, top titles, that you would, if money was no object, you would go and buy tomorrow. It's crazy, it's madness, and like we say, companies should have sorted this out way back at the beginning of January, February, realised it was all edit coming to a head and done something about it, because surely they're going to suffer. Some of these top games are going to suffer.
Yep. The only good thing that I can see from it is throughout now next year, when it gets low again, we'll have a whole pile of games that hopefully maybe go on sale or come down in price. We'll be able to go pick them up then.
That's a great point. Like me on a low income that really has to justify game purchases. Simply, the only way that's keeping me happy is saying to myself that come January, February next year, I will be able to get the Mass Effects, all the top games that's coming out, the Rock Bands, the whatever.
Yep.
You know, and I
start seeing them on your swap site or used.
Swap site. They should be there. Like, people keep asking me, what shall I buy, or shall I buy all these games? And I keep telling my family members, look, buy one. You can't play them all at once, and they're not going anywhere. They will still be there in February. They'll still be the same game. You don't have to buy them all, and it's just crazy by these companies. So,
I'm never going to let you talk to my wife.
Oh.
She hasn't figured that out yet. And I have a game of about 20 games here that I need to get to.
Oh, dear. Fly, I think I'm going to have to have a visit over there, mate, and come and stay with you for a month.
Yeah,
I think I'd be in my element.
For a month. Come for a month, and we'd be playing 24/7 and still not done yet.
Probably not, which would be a great time. But anyway, guys, I think we'll wrap it up there. It's been a good show. So shout outs this week again for the show is Kid Dog again as the host of the main show. Should be back in a week or so. I've spoke to him this evening. Again, he's getting a bit better. He should be heading back pretty soon. But this show will be back next week again. So thank you for all the positive feedback. Anybody wish to visit the forums and website can do at www.crankygamersuk.com. As I mentioned before, there is a donation link if any of you guys out there would like to donate. We do need funds to keep the site rolling along. Would be appreciated. You don't have to. There's plenty of links on there, plenty of fun to be had, and you're all welcome. Fly, have you got any shout outs?
Yeah, just you guys, it's a good show and I'm glad to be a part of it. Thank everybody for the feedback. We do appreciate it. I enjoy reading what people think about it. And also, just so we mentioned, if you hadn't seen it in the regular show, we did start the first official Cranky Gamers contest. So you might want to check that out and get involved.
Yeah, it's up on the forum, guys, if you didn't know. Just a quick shout. We're having our first competition to win 1,600 Microsoft points for leaving a review in iTunes. It can be for any show. I think we'll stretch it to this show as well, Fly. I don't see any reason why not.
Yeah, they're all on the same feed.
They're all on the same feed, so it's one feed, one feedback. I think we're going to do it. We'll probably do it random. I think that's the best.
Yeah, I think that's best. Yep.
Yeah, we'll do a random pick in probably 2 weeks' time, 2 or 3 weeks' time. We'll keep you posted. But yeah, there is a competition up there to win some Microsoft points. Get yourself over to iTunes and leave us some feedback. Doesn't have to be nice, just be honest and straight to the point. It helps us out everywhere. So I think, Fly, just to finish off, have you going to give us an idea of what you may be reviewing next week?
Oh, there's so much good stuff. I've been playing a little Seen It on the 360, which I'm really liking, so we might have that. I'm still working on Eye of Judgment. I don't
Still
even
not.
Yeah, I don't know.
You've not got that to work at all then yet.
I haven't. I've got partially. I think it's the lighting. It's apparently a little pickier about the lighting than I had hoped it would be. But I'm still working on that. I'm getting Assassin's Creed this week, and I'll have Mario Galaxy for the Wii. So one of them will probably be around.
Yeah, or maybe both. We'll choose in midweek, guys, and we'll.
And I'm on vacation, so I got lots of time.
Oh well, that's great. We probably might even do a bit of an extended one then and chuck 3 or 4 in. So yeah, guys, hope you enjoyed this week's show. As I say, come to the forums if you want to give us any ideas of any hardware you might want reviewing yourselves, or any games that you want us to review. Stick them up there. We'll do our best to get them and chuck a review, see how they are. So thanks, Fly, for joining me this week.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep, we'll see you all again next week. Bye, all.
Bye.
Hi, everybody, again. Just a bit of a little after show for you. Halfway through recording this week's episode, Fly had a little bit of a phone call. Made us laugh. Thought you guys would enjoy it. So take a listen, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
Hello, it's me, Mario. Woohoo! And I'm calling because I'm here at the GameStop where they're telling me that you pre-ordered my newest and the greatest game, Galaxy. Woohoo! It's gonna be here tomorrow at your local GameStop. You can come and pick it up at the GameStop store where you originally reserve your copy. Whoopee!
All right, sorry.
Mate,
That was GameStop.
I might even keep that in the show. That is cool.